Change is an inevitable part of life. It's often whispered in the back of our minds, nudged into our thoughts by a series of events or feelings we can no longer ignore. But here's what I know to be true. Most people don't make a big change until something compels them to. Until a combination of signs, experiences, and emotions collide to say, enough is enough. And that's the moment of reckoning. The moment we either embrace the call for change or settle into the discomfort of our own excuses. So, the question becomes, how do you know when it's time? What are the signs? What tells you that you've reached the point where staying the same is no longer an option? I'll tell you this, change doesn't announce itself with fanfare and trumpets. It doesn't come knocking with a pre-written guarantee of success. It's more subtle than that. It's a series of whispers, a collection of feelings, and sometimes an outright storm of dissatisfaction. Today, I want to talk about the 5 signs that it's time to make a big change in your life. These signs aren't always obvious, and they're not meant to scare you. They're meant to awaken you. Because awareness is the first step to transformation. When you know better, you can do better. And I'll tell you this, the signs aren't just indicators of what's wrong. They're signals of potential. They're your life's way of saying, there's something more, something greater waiting for you on the other side of this. And the beauty of recognizing these signs is that it gives you a choice to step into your potential, to pursue a life that's more aligned with who you are and who you want to be. So, how do you know when it's time? Here's the first sign. You feel stuck. Being stuck isn't just about your circumstances. It's about how you feel. It's that sense of moving, but not progressing, of working hard, but not getting anywhere meaningful. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever been in a situation where you're doing everything you're supposed to, but it still feels like something's missing? That's what it means to feel stuck. For some, this feeling shows up in their careers. The job might be steady, the paycheck reliable, but the excitement is gone. The challenges that once motivated you now feel like monotony. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months. And you start to wonder, is this all there is? For others, it's their personal life. Routines take over, and the relationships that used to bring joy feel distant or disconnected. Or maybe it's your own growth. Your potential feels boxed in, limited by the habits you've settled into. You're not failing, but you're not thriving either. Why does this happen? Often it's because you've outgrown where you are. Think about it. Every stage of life has its lessons, its challenges, its rewards. But when you've learned what you needed to and stayed too long in the same place, stagnation sets in. And here's the truth. Stagnation isn't just uncomfortable. It's a sign that you're ready for more. But breaking free from being stuck requires awareness. You have to recognize that you're in a pattern that's no longer serving you. And that recognition can be tough because it means admitting that what used to work for you isn't working anymore. It means looking at your life and saying, this isn't where I want to stay. Once you've admitted that you feel stuck, the next step is to disrupt the routine. Here's why this matters. When you do the same things, you get the same results. If you want something different, you have to create space for it. That doesn't mean you need to quit your job tomorrow or move to a new city overnight. It can start small. Maybe it's trying something you've never done before, changing up your schedule a little bit. These small shifts create momentum, and momentum is what gets you moving again. But here's the key. You also need a vision. Because if you don't know where you're going, it's easy to circle back to where you started. Take some time to think about the life you want. What excites you? What would make you feel alive again? Write it down. Make it tangible. The clearer your vision, the easier it becomes to take steps toward it. I once met someone who said, "I feel like I'm in a rut. I don't know how to get out." My advice was simple. Start with one thing. Not everything, just one thing. If you're stuck in your job, explore what interests you outside of work. If your relationships feel stagnant, have one meaningful conversation. Here's the truth about being stuck. It's not permanent. It's a signal, a wake-up call that you're ready for the next level. But nothing changes until you do. Ask yourself, is there an area of your life where you feel stuck? What's one small action you can take today to create movement? The next sign that it's time to make a big change in your life is a persistent feeling of dissatisfaction. This isn't the kind of dissatisfaction that comes and goes with bad days or tough circumstances. No, this is deeper. It's a steady, underlying sense that something in your life isn't as it should be. Even when things look fine on the surface, there's this quiet voice inside saying, "This isn't it." Have you ever felt that? You achieve a goal you've worked hard for, but the satisfaction is fleeting. Or you find yourself going through your daily routine, but it feels hollow, like you're just going through the motions. This kind of dissatisfaction doesn't fade with time. It lingers. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets. Why does this happen? Sometimes it's because we're pursuing the wrong things. Society has a way of convincing us that success looks a certain way. A high-paying job, a big house, a certain lifestyle. So we chase those things, thinking they'll bring us fulfillment. But when we get there, we realize they don't fill the void. Because true satisfaction doesn't come from external accomplishments. It comes from alignment. Other times, dissatisfaction arises because we've grown. The things that used to make us happy no longer do, and that's okay. It's a natural part of life. What fulfilled you 5 years ago might not fulfill you now, but the challenge is recognizing when it's time to let go of what no longer serves you and move toward what does. Now, here's something important to understand about dissatisfaction. It's not a sign that you're ungrateful. People often confuse the two. They think, I should be happy with what I have. Other people would love to be in my position. And while gratitude is important, it keeps you grounded. It doesn't mean you have to settle. Gratitude and ambition can coexist. You can appreciate where you are while still striving for more. So what do you do when you feel this persistent dissatisfaction? The first step is to listen to it. Don't push it aside or try to silence it. Instead, get curious. Ask yourself, what's behind this feeling? Is it my work, my relationships, my sense of purpose? Be honest with yourself, even if the answers are uncomfortable. Once you've identified the source of your dissatisfaction, the next step is to imagine what satisfaction would look like. What would a fulfilling career, relationship, or lifestyle feel like for you? And notice I said feel like, not look like. Because true fulfillment is about how something makes you feel, not how it appears to others. Imagine someone who's spent years climbing the corporate ladder. They've achieved financial success, but they feel empty. When they dig deeper, they realize their dissatisfaction comes from a lack of connection to their work. It doesn't feel meaningful to them. So they start exploring ways to bring more purpose into their career. Maybe they shift to a role that aligns with their values or start a passion project on the side. The key here is action. Dissatisfaction is a signal that something needs to change, but nothing happens until you take that first step. And here's the good news. You don't have to have it all figured out to start. Even small steps can begin to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be. We have to address the fear that often comes with this process. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of making the wrong choice. It's easy to let fear keep you in a state of dissatisfaction, convincing yourself that it's safer to stay where you are. But I'll tell you this, the risk of staying stuck is far greater than the risk of moving forward. Because staying stuck means living with regret, and regret is far heavier than any failure. So, are there areas of your life where you feel a persistent dissatisfaction? What's that feeling trying to tell you? And what's one small step you can take to move closer to fulfillment? Next, the third sign that it's time to make a big change is when your life feels out of alignment. Alignment is a powerful thing. It's what happens when your actions, values, and goals are all in sync. When you're aligned, life has a sense of flow. The choices you make feel right, even when they're challenging. There's a sense of purpose in what you do, and you feel connected to your path. But when you're out of alignment, there's a disconnect. You feel like you're walking a path that doesn't belong to you. Your days might be full, but they're not fulfilling. Your actions might be productive, but they're not meaningful. And your goals, they might not even feel like your own. Sometimes misalignment is easy to spot. You might be in a career that doesn't reflect your passions, or in a relationship that's no longer healthy. But other times, it's more subtle. You might be successful by every external measure, but something still feels off. You can't quite put your finger on it, but deep down, you know, this isn't the life you're meant to be living. Why does this happen? Often it's because we've allowed external expectations to dictate our choices. Maybe you followed a path that seemed practical or prestigious, but wasn't truly what you wanted. Or maybe you've said yes to so many obligations that you've lost touch with your own priorities. Over time, these choices create a gap between who you are and how you're living. So, how do you know if you're out of alignment? Start by asking yourself a few questions. Do your actions reflect your values? Do the things you spend your time on bring you closer to the life you want? And here's a big one. When you look at your goals, do they excite you or do they feel like obligations? When you're out of alignment, it's easy to feel trapped. You might think, I've already invested so much time and energy into this path. I can't just start over. But here's what I want you to remember. Alignment isn't about abandoning everything you've built. It's about realigning it. It's about making adjustments that bring you closer to who you truly are. One way to start realigning your life is to reconnect with your core values. Take some time to reflect on what matters most to you. Is it creativity, connection, growth, contribution? Once you're clear on your values, evaluate how well your current life reflects them. If there's a disconnect, that's where change needs to happen. Let's say one of your core values is freedom, but your current lifestyle feels restrictive. What can you do to create more freedom? Maybe it's setting boundaries around your time, exploring flexible work options, or simplifying your commitments. The goal isn't to overhaul everything at once. It's to make intentional choices that bring you closer to alignment. Another powerful tool is to create a vision for your life. Imagine waking up 1 year from now in a life that feels completely aligned. What would it look like? What would you be doing? Who would you be surrounded by? The clearer your vision, the easier it becomes to identify what needs to change. We also have to address the resistance that often comes with this process. Change, especially when it involves realigning your life, can feel overwhelming. You might worry about disappointing others, stepping into the unknown, or facing judgment. These are valid fears, but they're not reasons to stay misaligned. Because staying misaligned comes with its own cost. A cost paid in frustration, exhaustion, and the quiet pain of living a life that doesn't feel like your own. Think about this. When your car is out of alignment, it pulls to one side. You can still drive, but it's harder, less efficient, and more tiring. That's what life feels like when you're out of alignment. The journey becomes a struggle, and you expend energy fighting against the pull. But when you realign, the journey becomes smoother, more focused, and far more rewarding. Are there areas of your life that feel misaligned? What's one small step you can take today to bring them closer to your values, your goals, and your authentic self? Next, the fourth sign that it's time to make a big change is when fear has become your primary decision maker. Now, fear is a natural part of life. It's wired into us to keep us safe. But here's the truth. Fear can also keep us stuck. When fear takes the lead, it doesn't just protect you from danger. It prevents you from growth. It builds walls where there could be doors. And those walls can make your world feel smaller and smaller. You know, fear is in charge when it's the loudest voice in the room. It says, don't try that. It's too risky. Don't go there. It's unknown territory. Stay where you are. It's safer here. And the thing about fear is that it sounds so reasonable. It disguises itself as caution or logic. But at its core, fear is about avoidance. Avoiding failure, avoiding judgment, avoiding discomfort. But here's what fear doesn't tell you. The things you avoid out of fear don't go away. They linger, quietly reminding you of the risks you didn't take, the chances you didn't seize, the dreams you didn't pursue. And over time, that avoidance turns into regret. I want to be clear. Not all fear is bad. Fear can be a signal that you're stepping outside your comfort zone. It shows up when you're about to do something meaningful, something that matters. The problem isn't fear itself. It's letting fear control your choices. Have you ever wanted to make a change but found yourself paralyzed by the what ifs? What if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? What if people judge me? These questions can spiral into inaction, convincing you that it's better to stay put than to take the risk. But I'm telling you, fear thrives on inaction. The longer you wait, the stronger it gets. So how do you break fear's hold? First, you have to recognize it. What are you afraid of? Name it. Write it down if you have to. When you name your fear, you bring it into the light. And in the light, fear begins to lose its power. Next, challenge it. Ask yourself, is this fear based on fact, or is it a story I'm telling myself? So often, fear is just a projection of the worst-case scenario. It's your mind imagining everything that could go wrong without considering everything that could go right. Instead of focusing on what you might lose, focus on what you might gain. What could your life look like if you made this change? What opportunities, experiences, or personal growth could come from it? Shift your perspective from what if I fail to what if I succeed? Another way to overcome fear is to take small steps. You don't have to leap into the unknown all at once. Start with something manageable. If you're afraid of switching careers, begin by exploring your options or building new skills on the side. If you're scared to speak up, practice sharing your thoughts in smaller, low-pressure situations. Each small action builds your confidence and weakens fear's grip. Fear also loves to magnify the unknown. But here's the truth. The unknown isn't your enemy. It's your opportunity. Everything you've ever wanted that you don't already have exists in the space of the unknown. Growth, success, fulfillment, they all require stepping into territory you haven't navigated before. And here's another thing. Fear often centers around failure. What if you try and fail? Well, here's the secret. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. Every failure teaches you something. Every setback equips you with knowledge, resilience, and experience that you can carry forward. The only true failure is never trying. One of the most freeing realizations is that you don't have to wait for fear to disappear to move forward. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the face of it. Think about an area of your life where fear has been holding you back. Maybe it's pursuing a dream, having a tough conversation, or stepping into a new opportunity. Ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? And if that worst case scenario came true, how would you handle it? Often you'll find that the fear isn't as big as it seems when you confront it head on. But then ask yourself another question. What's the best that could happen? What's the potential reward on the other side of this fear? Let that vision pull you forward, even when fear tries to hold you back. Fear is normal, but it doesn't have to control you. It's a part of the journey, not the guide. And every time you act, despite your fear, you build a little more confidence, a little more courage, and a lot more freedom. Where in your life has fear been the decision maker? What would it look like to take that power back, even in a small way? Next, the fifth sign that it's time to make a big change in your life is when opportunity begins to knock. Opportunity is a curious thing. It doesn't always announce itself with flashing lights or fanfare. Sometimes it's subtle, an idea that pops into your mind, a chance meeting, or a suggestion from a friend. Other times, it's a door swinging wide open, a new role, a big move, or a bold challenge. But here's the thing about opportunity. It's fleeting. It doesn't wait around forever. The question is, are you ready to recognize it when it arrives? Here's what often happens. Opportunity shows up, but because it feels unfamiliar or risky, we hesitate. We overthink it, second guess it, and convince ourselves it's not the right time. I'll wait until I'm more prepared. I'll wait until things calm down. I'll wait until I'm ready. But here's the truth. You're never going to feel completely ready. Opportunity rarely arrives when it's convenient. It comes when you're on the edge of growth, when life is challenging you to step up. So how do you know when opportunity is knocking? It's not always obvious, but there are clues. One clue is curiosity. When something sparks your interest or ignites a little excitement, that's often an opportunity in disguise. Another clue is discomfort. If something challenges you or stretches you in a way that feels uncomfortable but exciting, it might be an opportunity for growth. And then there's the fear that often comes with opportunity. Make no mistake, fear will show up. It will whisper, what if this doesn't work out? What if you're not good enough? What if it's too risky? But here's the thing. Every opportunity carries risk. The key is to focus on the potential reward. Ask yourself, what's on the other side of this door? What could I gain if I step through it? Sometimes opportunity doesn't look like we expect it to. It might show up as a challenge, a situation that forces you to adapt, grow, or think differently. It might even look like a setback. But here's what I want you to remember. Every challenge holds the seed of opportunity if you're willing to look for it. Take a moment to think about your own life. Have there been times when an opportunity presented itself, but you hesitated? Maybe you told yourself it wasn't the right time or that you weren't ready. And looking back, you wonder, what if I had said yes? You must be prepared, because opportunity favors the prepared. This doesn't mean you need to have every skill or answer before you act. It means being open, adaptable, and willing to learn. It means building the habits and mindset that allow you to recognize and seize opportunities when they come. If you've been dreaming of starting your own business, what can you do now to prepare? Can you start saving, learning, or experimenting on a small scale? If you've been wanting to advance in your career, are you developing the skills and connections that will help you step into that role? Preparation isn't about waiting. It's about actively getting ready. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. When you've done the work to prepare yourself, opportunities that once seemed out of reach suddenly become possible. And when opportunity knocks, you don't hesitate. You act. But what if you feel like opportunity isn't knocking at all? Sometimes you have to knock on the door yourself. Opportunity isn't always about waiting for something to happen. It's about creating it. If the door isn't opening, build your own door. Reach out to that person. Start that project. Take that class. Action creates opportunities where there once were none. And here's the truth. Opportunity isn't always glamorous. It might look like hard work, starting at the bottom or taking a step back to move forward. But if you're willing to embrace it, even the smallest opportunity can lead to something extraordinary. Ask yourself, what opportunities are in front of you right now? They might not be obvious. They might even feel intimidating. But if you take a closer look, I bet you'll find that life is presenting you with possibilities, inviting you to grow, to change, to step into your potential. Will you answer the knock? Life is full of signals, full of moments that whisper or sometimes shout that it's time to change. These 5 signs aren't random. They're guideposts pointing you toward the next chapter of your life. When you feel stuck, it's life's way of telling you that your potential isn't being used, that the routine you're in has outlived its purpose. When dissatisfaction lingers, it's not about complaining. It's about recognizing the gap between where you are and where you know you could be. Misalignment. That's your inner compass saying, this isn't who you are, and reminding you to course correct. Fear taking over is the sign that you're on the edge of something important, something worth pursuing. And when opportunity knocks, it's the universe asking, are you ready to take the leap? But here's the truth. Recognizing the signs isn't enough. Awareness without action changes nothing. You've got to move. You've got to make decisions, even if they're uncomfortable. Because staying where you are, when you know you're meant for more, carries its own kind of risk. The risk of regret. The risk of never knowing what could have been. The good news is, change doesn't have to happen all at once. It starts with a single step. A small, courageous act that signals to yourself and the world, I'm ready. And that step leads to another and another. Until one day you look back and realize you've created the life you once dreamed of. Now I want you to pause and reflect. Are you seeing any of these signs in your own life? If you're honest with yourself, where do you feel stuck, dissatisfied, or out of alignment? Where is fear holding you back? And perhaps most importantly, where is opportunity knocking? Take those questions seriously. Write down your answers, because the clarity that comes from reflection is the first step to transformation. And remember this, you don't have to have it all figured out to start. The path to change doesn't come with guarantees. It comes with possibilities. And those possibilities are what make life worth living. So, what's the next step for you? What's the one action you can take today to move closer to the life you want? It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be intentional. Because at the end of the day, the signs are there to guide you. But it's up to you to take the leap. That's where the magic happens. That's where life gets exciting. And that's where you discover just how much you're truly capable of. Now go make it happen.